Nothing screams out stunning and brave more than an Aboriginal drag queen marching through the streets of Sydney in what looks like an oversized nappy, red thigh-high boots, covered in face paint and waving a spear. Now that is culture. Let me introduce this lad, an Aboriginal drag queen who goes by the name of Felicia Foxx. Now, besides prancing around in heels and makeup, he performed a mock execution of Christ with another one of the alphabet troupe who was posing as a gay Mardi Gras Jesus, which, understandably, has drawn criticism from many Christians. Much to the dismay of some viewers, I don't think this should be considered a crime. It's the double standards that I want to draw attention to. If he wants to use his free speech to dress up in his great anti-bindi streetwalking boots and mock Christianity in this way, then that's fine with me. Although I don't think it should be done at an event that is funded by the taxpayer. Taxpayer-funded Mardi Gras, hey? Just one more thing that should be assessed by an Australian Department of Government Efficiency. Let's perform a thought exercise, right? If you and I and a bunch of our mates, using our own funding, got together to set fire to a gay and trans flag out on the street, then there would be a mass meltdown from the Rainbow Mafia. Activists would be demanding that I get sacked from my job and not to be given employment anywhere else ever again. Smug, righteous radio hosts would be hissing my name and telling their listeners how abhorrent I am. All the intellectuals on the ABC would be vigorously nodding their heads in agreement with each other that we had carried out a most violent and disgusting attack on the LGBT community. I guarantee you that police resources would be wasted on investigating and interviewing me. All of that over me destroying their sacred flag, which was invented when? In the 60s? 1978. All of that outrage would be over something they invented in the late 70s. 1978, far out. I'm sure Scientology is older than that, therefore I guess you could argue that Scientology should be held in greater reverence than LGBTQ ideology. We all know there's a reason they chose to mock Christ but not Muhammad. It's because Christians are too tolerant. They'll just accept it and, turn the other cheek. Whereas, what happens if you insult Islam? But here is a real-life comparison of how the police and courts will treat mockery of Islam. In 2015, a white nationalist performed a political stunt, and no, I am not a white nationalist. He beheaded a mannequin with a toy sword while shouting Allah Akbar. This was in protest of a mosque that was being built at the time in Bendigo. Now, I don't care about all the faux outrage that I'll surely have thrown at me for this, but he's a Nazi, Tom. He shouldn't have rights. I mean, shouldn't people with nationalist ideas be treated the same as everyone else? What happened to the mass equality that you all screech about? They performed this stunt to make a statement. It offended some religious groups. His event wasn't funded by the taxpayer, but he was dragged through the courts for years over it. Probably cost him a fortune in lawyers' fees. The magistrate says the trio crossed the line when they made a video in which they beheaded a dummy with a toy sword, and each was fined $2,000. Would this magistrate view a mock recreation of the crucifixion of Christ as crossing the line? Highly unlikely, as Felicia Foxx has both Aboriginal and LGBT privilege. And as I said, Christians are easy, soft targets and deemed to be fair game. Spare a thought for the bloody Mormons, right? There's a full-length musical devoted to ripping the piss out of them that's been touring the world since 2011. And to my knowledge, not a single follower of the Church of the Latter-day Saints has of yet martyred themselves over the mocking of their religion and its founder, Joseph Smith. Far-right nationalists found guilty of inciting serious contempt for Muslims after a mock beheading video. What pandering! Are Muslims so sensitive and lacking of emotional control that we have to have unique laws to protect them from being offended and upset? Or unique laws to protect the Rainbow Brigade from being offended? If these laws are used to protect the feelings of some religious groups, then they should be used to protect the feelings of Christians too. Either that or drop all of these nonsense laws. If you want to follow he, him, she, her, them, then they go by the Instagram username I Am Deadly, Felicia Foxx. And you can listen to them lecture you on blackfella excellence. I am deadly. What a deluded view he has of himself. It's yet more double standards though. I would dare Blair Cottrell to claim the username I Am Deadly Blair Cottrell and push his views on whitefella excellence. I'm sure it wouldn't take long for Instagram to ban him and to have ASIO tapping his phone calls and seizing his laptop. Felicia Foxx was criticised by many, including by other aboriginals, which I find hilarious. He and the photographer claim that there is nothing disrespectful in the photo, and in its response he claims, pre-colonial times and back in the times before white man settled, we had gay, trans, two-spirited people belonging to different nations across this continent. So there you go. Aboriginal drag queens were stomping around in thigh-high PVC slut boots prior to Captain Cook arriving. So back in 2023 we had Lydia Thorpe claiming that the entire Pride movement was actually started by black and brown trans women. And last year we were told that Aboriginal culture, and welcome to country ceremonies in particular, are 250,000 years old. So don't be shocked when they next tell us that drag queens were actually conceived by the Indigenous community 250,000 years ago. I can't wait for that pre-match lecture we're going to get at future footy games, when they do it in that contrived, inauthentic tone, inserting odd pauses mid-sentence, putting emphasis on words which don't require it, all in an attempt to betray themselves as holding some sort of aged wisdom. And we, the audience, must wait patiently to hear the very important words that will flow out of their mouths next, even though we've all heard the same welcome 1,000 times now. We welcome you here today on the sacred ground of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, paying respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and particularly our LGBTQI and drag queen ancestors from the dreamtime in the long, long ago. Anyway, stunning and brave.